If you watch the Texans-Colts game, it was fairly obvious that the Texans' defense really struggles. They have a solid pass rush with Jadeveon Clowney and J.J. Watt, but their secondary leaves a lot to be desired. Matt Hasselbeck and company were able to put up solid fantasy weeks against a defense that really struggled to come off the field. This week they have a matchup with a Jaguars team that looks to be a lot more confident heading into Week 6. They showed a balanced attack in Week 5 in their loss to the Buccaneers. T.J. Yeldon had his first career 100-yard rushing game, and Blake Bortles was the highest scoring fantasy quarterback. Between Allen Robinson and Allen Hurns, there's no real number one between them. They usually carry the bulk of the targets. I like Hurns because he's a $900 value less than Robinson, and he usually is either a little less on the production scale or equal. So this week, I like the stack of Bortles and one of the receivers, or Bortles and Yeldon, as generally as one goes up, so do the others. Our other stack this week is the Chiefs versus the Vikings. Jamal Charles' injury leaves a lot of questions surrounding the Chiefs' offense, such as who's going to replace him. Is it going to be Charcandrick West, the person who's taken the bulk of the snaps as Jamal Charles' backup this year? Or is it going to be Niles Davis, a guy who had a great stint as Charles' injury replacement last year? Or could it be DeAnthony Thomas, a guy who's been very effective in the passing game out of the backfield? It hasn't been announced yet, but I would expect it to be Charcandrick West. And one of the things I look for this week is Alex Smith to take on much more heavy role in the Chiefs' offense. It's likely that Charles being out for the season won't have an effect on Smith's passing game. A lot of the damage that the Chiefs do are yards after the catch, with big play threats such as Maclin and Kelsey. Maclin has been the best option so far for the Chiefs, and he's put up 3 solid weeks in a row. And Kelsey is a consistent red zone target, which could lead to a lot of points now that there's not going to be as many goal line carries, seeing that a superstar running back like Charles is out. Another thing to watch is that Carlos Hyde tore up the Vikings defense in Week 1, and Hyde really hasn't been that productive since. Maybe a backup play here could be a great value pick, and if we can figure out who's going to take the bulk of the snaps, that could be a huge payoff in this week's fantasy scores. Here are this week's high-price, high-value picks. First, Tom Brady. This is a matchup I guarantee you Tom Brady has been waiting for, and I'd imagine he'd be incredibly motivated to put Deflategate behind him and smoke the Colts and prove all doubters wrong. Our second option, Devonta Freeman. Tevin Coleman's return did not affect Freeman's play. He has scored over 35 points in 3 straight weeks, and I like him Thursday against the Saints' weak defense. Matt Forte has been the Bears' only consistent offensive weapon right now, and they use him heavily in both the passing and running games. Keenan Allen has been consistently one of the top performers at the receiver spot this season. He gets a lot of yards, catches, and touchdowns. The Chargers have one of the league's most dynamic passing offenses, and Allen is a major reason why. DeAndre Hopkins, much like Allen, is his team's only consistent offensive weapon. He gets over 12 targets per game, so scoring potential is high, and I like the Jaguars matchup this week. Brandon Marshall has dominated in every game this season. He is a touchdown magnet and is a lock for solid numbers week in and week out. Like I said earlier with Tom Brady, Edelman's looking forward to this matchup too, as if Brady's going to prove the Colts wrong, his top receiver is obviously going to get into it. He gets tons of targets and is the most valuable receiver in a PPR league. Also, Gronk is targeted at least one time every time the Patriots are in the red zone. He is Brady's favorite big play target, and he is the most expensive tight end in DFS, but he is also easily the highest scoring. We have a lot of interesting plays in this week's bargain bin. Starting at the quarterback position, we have Andy Dalton and Blake Bortles. Andy Dalton has been one of the league's best to this point. It really surprises me that he's not up over $6,000 yet. I think the reason for this is that Giovanni Bernard and Jeremy Hill get a lot of goal line carries, and that affects Dalton's overall touchdown totals. He's been great, and his fantasy scores have been in the top 5 almost every week, so his price being so low is kind of surprising. Blake Bortles is playing the Texans defense, and last week he was the highest scoring fantasy option. He is an injury concern with a sprained shoulder, but no one really knows what's going to happen. There are 3 really solid options this week at the running back position in our bargain bin. Chris Johnson's career has been rejuvenated since he's joined the Cardinals and formed a dual-back system with Andre Ellington. He's had multiple 100-yard games so far, and the Steelers have a really iffy run defense. They've allowed solid points to Dion Lewis and Melvin Gordon. Chris Johnson is similar to Lewis in that he's a real threat to catch and run, and he's a real threat to take the ball to the house whenever he can. Another option this week is Carlos Hyde. He has really struggled to live up to the lofty expectations he set for himself with a dominant Week 1, and he returns to our value list after a strong showing in Week 5 with 93 yards and a touchdown. The San Francisco offense really needs him to step up as Colin Kaepernick has been absolutely dreadful to this point. The third option is TJ Yeldon. He's coming off of his first career 100-yard game. The Jaguars' offense looked much more balanced in Week 5, and I expect them to try to do the same in Week 6. This balanced attack led to a lot more offensive output and really took the pressure off of their defense. There are three tremendous values at our wide receiver and tight end spots. Tyler Eifert has been a tough one to call for me to this point. When I don't pick him, he scores multiple touchdowns like he did in Week 5 and Week 1. But when I do pick him, he really struggles. He's always a solid pick because he's always a threat to score, and he's Andy Dalton's favorite red zone target when they don't run the ball. Our second option this week is Rashard Matthews. Matthews is the second option for Tannehill on most passing downs. He's had a few very productive games to this point, and his big play potential at a low price makes him a great value play. For some reason, DraftKings really hasn't caught on with Willie Snead yet. He's been great in each of the last 2 weeks, and he looks to be Drew Brees' favorite target. He is a no-doubt value choice this week as his price is not even close to matching his overall production. We have a few injury concerns to watch this week. First, Blake Bortles. Bortles suffered a sprained shoulder in Week 5, although he did play through the injury for the remainder of the game. He is listed here because he is our top value pick at the quarterback position for Week 6. Should he be out, it will have a significant effect on all of our lineups. Charcandrick West has begun to overtake Niles Davis as Jamal Charles' backup. Andy Reid has publicly said he likes Charcandrick's value in the passing game. I expect West to get a majority of the touches now that Charles is out for the season. Last year when Charles was out, his backups were very productive, so this could be a great thing going forward as his value at $4,000 is very high. Kamara Aiken overperformed his production in Week 5, but not as much as I would have liked to see. He had 10 points in the first half, but did not get many targets in the second half and overtime. If Steve Smith is out again, you have to look at him again because he's the number one receiver for a team that likes to pass the ball. Thomas Rawls has had a tremendous Week 5, in which he was one of the best values at the running back position. Lynch is still listed as questionable, but I do expect him to go. This is one to watch because if Lynch plays in any capacity, I think you sit Rawls. Remember to stay updated on all injury information on our Twitter page at EasyStrategy2015 or on our website www.endzonestrategy.com. This week we have a really strong optimal lineup. Starting at the quarterback position, we have Andy Dalton. Running backs, we have Devontae Freeman and Dion Lewis. The wide receiver slots, we have DeAndre Hopkins, Allen Hurns, and Willie Snead. Our tight end, Antonio Gates. The flex is where we have questions. You could play Larry Fitzgerald, who is a big play threat, or you could play Julian Edelman, who's a steady, productive receiver who gets a lot of targets. On defense, you can go with the Jets playing against Washington, and you can bank on a really solid game.